people out of here. Then we've got another hour working session. So, whose idea was this anyway? Yours?
Mine.
Yeah, we'll blame Renee. Anyway, she thought it'd be a good idea for the three of us entities to get together and just let everybody else kind of know what's going on. So we'll start over here, Steve, and we'll just go around this way and introduce ourselves. And Dan, that'd be you.
That me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm the only Steve here.
Are you Steve?
Steve Lemko, Township Supervisor.
Hmm?
Butch Mueller, Township Supervisor.
You don't have to stand. This isn't like a court of law or anything like that.
Mark Dingman, Township Supervisor.
Matt Fuller, Superintendent of Payville Schools.
Tom Pearson, School Board Member.
Ashley Anderson, School Board.
Rick Kane, School Board.
Paul Erner, Police Chief.
Chuck DeWolf, City Engineer.
Ron Morgan, the Public Works Director.
Sean Ranke, City Council. Glenn Gilmore, City Council.
Jeff Thompson, Mayor.
Renee Eckerly, City Administrator.
Alicia LeBeau, City Council.
Neil Hersberg, City Council.
And our attorney left, so we're safe.
Told to go home.
Yeah, okay, great. It's odd seeing you not being on the
I
school
know.
board.
Yep.
Yeah,
Change my hat.
Hey, change your hat, okay, well, that's fine, and, well, I guess some of you have been on the board for a while, but, in serving in different positions in the community, but it's great to see everybody, willing to do what they're doing here. Anyway, so, first up, we've got some current projects, we'll just go at the, school district, 741, and, let us know what you got going on, and I think I know a couple things you're probably gonna mention.
Yeah, so I guess and you guys can jump in.
I think it'd be better if you just.
We're gonna let Renee speak too, since she's the only paid one, well, the highest paid one up here.
So, when we talk about current projects, I'm assuming, you know, we're talking about, facility infrastructure projects. You know, those of you that, have checked your mail in the last couple of days, I think you should have received a survey from the school district, by the name of School Perceptions is helping us with a community survey. So that is out in the community now. And that's something that the board is going to be taking a look at those results in early May and then formulating a plan as far as what potentially would be moving forward. The district has a lot of needs. When you talk about the infrastructure of our buildings, there is a long list of items that need to be addressed. And so whether it's a short-term or a 2 to 5 year out project, our facilities are going to demand a lot of attention, a lot of community attention and school district attention. And so that is something that is front and center. We've been talking about community center, enhancing career and tech education space. We've also been talking about solving some logistic issues with auditorium and lobby and overflow and those type of pieces. And then there's a lot of stuff that isn't the shiny new toys, but it's the infrastructure that you don't see when you walk into a space. There's a lot of need in that area of both of our buildings as well. We have older structures, and so as you have older structures and as they age, there are things that need to be updated, they need to be recommissioned and sometimes replaced. So that's kind of out there right now as far as what that is going to, what the ticket is for that or what the cost is. I think that's still something that's being worked on and being finalized, but it is going to be a significant project is the only way you can really define it. Compound that with, in the next 5 years, we're going to be looking at an operating referendum as well. That is definitely on the radar right now for the board. You know, right now we're at about $725 per student for an operating referendum. The state average is somewhere around $1,300. So that's going to be a need too as the district moves forward. And so yeah, we've got front burner issues that are important and need to be addressed and quality solutions I think have to be developed, so. If you guys want to add anything to that?
I guess, yeah, as Matt said, I'm first year in the school board here. Been in town 12 years, been a big support of the school district through the years, as volleyball coach and work with athletic departments and stuff. And there is, as Matt said, a defined need within this district that we're really seriously taking a look at. And we're excited to get the results back in the surveys, just to kind of have a better understanding of what the community is feeling right now, where are we at, and how can we better make our decisions appropriately for the community, and that support is what we want to back and be behind in order to make that best decision along with Matt and for our school district, for the community. It's such a thriving, living, breathing object in this community that we don't want to see start deteriorating. We don't want to see go away. There's a lot of questions we can answer and ask regarding student population and stuff, but there are so many things that just myself on the first few months of school where I've learned as far as the cost and the spending and the legislature behind what we need as a school district and the amount of money we need and that's and where a lot of our money is going, the special education needs and facility needs for special education and what that's taking away from previously, we used to know certain avenues, aspects of our district for certain space. Well, that space is getting eaten up by what the legislation requires us to hold for special education, what we need and that and things. So that starts eating away at everything. Next thing you know, we're in a pretty big hurt in a couple of years without some big facility projects. So it's what I've learned in the last few months and last 12 years of being in town.
A couple things that kind of come to mind, and one of the ideas I think, or one of the things that we hope to come out of this are areas where we can collaborate and work together. We've got a good working relationship, I think, with the township, and I think we've got a good working relationship with the school board. I know we collaborate through the community ed. The city does not own any ball fields. We rely on the school district and for those facilities and community ed for some of the programs and pay hopefully accordingly. So any other things where you think we could work together back and forth and the playground. I think we just had a little bit of a hiccup there with some of the playground.
I'm wondering how the city can work with the school to market and push your CIT program. I'm involved in the school with that quite a bit. And that's a huge thing the school has been doing without the referendum, without all this other things with private money, and the school put in a lot of time and money. And also that would be kind of an interesting concept, how we could help you market that or be involved in the CIT program.
Yeah, and I think that's moving forward. That's going to be a big focus. As if you remove ourselves from the facility side of the conversation and look maybe more at the academic and programming side of things at Beanville Schools, one of the things that is going to be on the docket for next year is really to start talking about what career pathways look like at our senior high. And from there, I think the real thing, I was actually just talking with some people from the Community Foundation today about this and talking with them about, we may not necessarily need the dollars and cents and the equipment coming in, but what we really are going to be looking at is how can we foster and develop better partnerships within our community. And you look at career and tech education, you look at all of the stuff that's going on at our industrial park, you look at all of the experts that we have in this community, and I think really one of the big things that the school needs to do is try to start leveraging all of those resources in the same forward momentum. How can you get those experts, whether it be from a Lewis Industry or Roto Chopper or Staying Precision, how can we get them actually engaged and in front of kids in school? And I think it's a partnership that can win for both. I think you have employers that are looking for apprenticeships, looking for internships, looking for that labor force to get that kid that might find a niche that's something they're really passionate about. And by getting those people into school and see what kids are doing in school and how it can apply to an actual employment opportunity after school, it puts a face with the name. It's a way to actually open up those doors to start getting that relationship established. So I think that's a critical component. How that fits with just city council, I think city council's one piece of that complex puzzle, but I think you look at all of our community and whether it be Centricare and what the hospital and the health sector can bring, or whether it be the manufacturing sector out in the industrial park, we really need to work on how do we foster those relationships to open up as many doors as we can for our young people. That to me is probably the next step in this and where the school is going. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of, it was pertinent to immediate.
It wasn't really more of a question, it was more of a, don't forget about us.
Yeah.
If there's something we can help.
Yeah, we were, I think most of us were at a regional League of Cities meetings over, where were we at? I forget, but it was Wright County. I'm sure you're familiar with what they're doing over there with their,
The Wright Technical Center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. More familiar than we are, but that looked like, just a neat idea to get the schools and the manufacturers linked together with some different ideas.
Yep. Can I go ahead? Well, can I put one plug and maybe throw a question back to you?
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten it. So I started in July, and I've gotten a lot of questions from people about, Matt, where do you see our school district going as far as enrollment? Are we growing? Are we kind of flat? Are we still declining? Where are things at? Across the state has seen an influx in students. So I would think that bodes well. If we could partner on one thing, here's what I would really ask the council to consider partnering on: affordable housing in the city of Painesville. I'm going to use a teacher as an example. Right now, we can pay a starting teacher about $37,000. You take $37,000, and if you put out there that you got a couple $100s in a student loan for your 4-year degree, and maybe you got a car payment for another $150 a month, and you start taking that and whittling that away from a $37,000 salary, and then you go on Zillow and you pull up 56362 to say, okay, what are my housing options in Painesville, Minnesota? I'm concerned about that, because right now we have a very senior faculty. That is a good thing from the perspective of we have very experienced teachers that I think do great work. But when we hit that crest, and now all of a sudden we're starting to look at how do we recruit and retain, I'm concerned about how we're going to do that. To get somebody, to employ them and get them living in this community, our chances of keeping them and having them be the educator we want them to be right in our community is far greater than when we have to employ somebody and they can find affordable housing in Eden Valley or in Richmond or something. It's just that much easier for them to be, this is a stop. This isn't a destination. They're here for a little bit, and all of a sudden then they're on to other things. So I guess I would really be interested. I don't know what role the school has in this, but I'm convinced from a staffing side of things, there's going to be a time in the future that affordable housing is going to be a real thing for Painesville area schools and attracting employment. I also think if we really want Painesville area schools to grow, we need housing for families that are just starting their families. And in my opinion, that is something that is a need. And so the school would be a partner. We will help in any way we can. I don't have solutions, so I feel kind of bad bringing it up, but I'd be more than happy to be a part of the conversation and try and brainstorm something that potentially could be a solution.
Don't feel bad about bringing it up. It's something that's been on our plate for some time. Renee is kind of our housing expert here, but we've been talking to to people at all levels of housing. Finding the willing investors is the hard part. And, you know, you can have, just me speaking here, you know, we have a very desirable community to live in with our schools, with our, you know, trails, our lakes, our, you know, park system. We try and keep the taxes low, you know, to make it, you know, look like a nice place to live. But unless you get someone that's willing to invest the money into, you know, putting something up there, you know, we got a place across the highway over there that the plan there was to double that in size, but I don't know if you've got anything to add as to what we've got a work session coming up here at 6 o'clock, and we're talking about housing, not necessarily affordable or workplace housing, but you know, it's something that's on every one of our work sessions, and we're, you know, beating our heads against the wall, so to speak, as to what to do.
And I think everybody is, and I think that's why they're talking about down at the legislature, because the developers, it's not a profitable thing to build apartments anymore. They lose money right away unless they can get some subsidizing. And so that's the toughest thing. You know, and you have to have so many of them be low income, market rate, and affordable. And TriCap, we were blessed with them for quite a few years that they built single family homes. But when the housing market crashed, they stopped doing that program, and that was an awesome program. That got a ton of people into homes, and the city had a first-time home buyer program that went with that. And I've been trying to encourage them. They did a test market down in Big Lake, and the feedback came back that they were not going to get back into it. So if we could find something along that line that could help us do that, but I'm not done searching, except I'm battling with Richmond and Cold Spring, and they're all looking for the same thing. I mean, I was on the phone with them today, and they're going, "So, got any housing coming in your area?" So, yeah, I totally agree with you. And our manufacturers have said the same thing. The other thing our manufacturers have told me that we need really bad is daycare. Severely need daycare. And daycare that's 24 hours, not you have to be there at 6 or whatever, because they work shift work and there's no place for the kids to go.
That's what I've heard. I'd call it night care. 4 to 9 or
Yep.
4 to 10.
So any ideas are welcome.
Yeah, please.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of follow-ups. Matt, one is housing enough? I mean, obviously it's a priority, but if we're going to be attracting younger and younger teachers who are willing to work at that $37,000 a year, is there enough? Have you heard from anybody you've interviewed? Is Painesville attractive enough to bring those people in if they can find a place to live? Or do we also need to be looking at the night scenes and whether or not there's enough for people to do?
Yeah. And that's a wonderful question. I don't know that I have the
Okay.
answer for it.
And maybe not.
But here I can give you an example. So we just recently went through a process to hire a new principal, an actual elementary principal. Now obviously that wage is not the same wage as a beginning teacher wage. But we had 33 licensed applicants for that position. That in and of itself tells me the desirability and the value that people see in Painesville area, and Painesville schools. So I think that speaks to a little bit of what you're talking about. I think there's other things too that can come into play with this. And you know, as a board and as an entity, we have some control and some tools that we can make also some adjustments to prioritize. How do we attract those people, and what can we do to potentially make that starting salary look more attractive and stuff like that. So I think it needs to be on both fronts. I mean, the school has to be committed to that. When we hit that curve and all of a sudden now we're looking for to replace teachers and stuff, we need to be positioned well so that we are attractive. But just what we went through with the experience of hiring that elementary principal, I think the people that are out there looking view Painesville as an attractive place to be. The school system as a school system with a lot of promise and value to it. So I think that perception is out there, but then, yeah, it needs to be a multifaceted approach. It needs to be a community-wide housing approach. It needs to be the school district prioritizing how we can improve that starting wage. It's got to be all together. We can't just expect one strategy to solve it.
And then going back to Renee's point on daycare, I understand the school's cutting the 3-year-old preschool, is that right? Is that?
Well, let's not use the word cut.
Okay, well, that's the impression, so let's clarify the record.
Let's get the impressions out there, but let's just
Yep.
make sure at the end of the day they're accurate. Yep.
Correct me, please. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So here's the issue. It's a good problem that we have. We are expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe, 77 invitees to kindergarten roundup. We're hoping to net 75 of them for next year's kindergarten. We have a large group of 3-year-olds going to 4-year-olds, and that is where the bind comes in, is right now with the space available to us in our elementary school. We have the capacity to hold 4 sections of preschool. And so in order for us to prioritize those 4-year-olds as our #1 priority, those 4-year-olds are going to take up all 4 sections. So the model of 3-year-old preschool is going to look different next year. But then the other issue needs to be, if this is where we're trending, how do we take and make our space work? So now, rather than being capped at 4 sections of preschool, we can accommodate 5 sections, we can accommodate 6 sections. That's all stuff that we can start working on. But when you have 3-year-olds, you really need classrooms that have full restroom facilities right in them and certain different requirements. It's not like you can just open up, take your smaller section of 2nd graders and use one of those classrooms as a preschool classroom. So that's the bind that we're in. We're hoping it's going to be a short-term bind, so we can get back to that model of quality 3-year-old preschool backed up with better 4-year-old preschool, backed up with kids that are already excelling at kindergarten. And that's really where the process is. But I do know those families right now that have 3-year-olds next year, there's some disappointment with what is happening. And it really is a space concern at this point.
Thanks.
I just had a quick, trying to make a quick comment.
Township might have something going on too, so.
Piggyback on what Jeff had to say a little earlier about, one thing I just want to kind of emphasize. If in the future we go ahead with a vote or request in the community about recreation facilities, it's kind of always been my understanding that the school has kind of borne the brunt of providing recreational facilities. And I've had a chance to travel around with basketball and see some facilities from other communities, various types. Some are co-sponsored by community and schools. Some very nice facilities that benefit the community and also bring in a lot of people from outside the community. I think it's important to emphasize that if we go to the public for requests for more athletic facilities, recreation facilities, we're doing this not just for the schools, we're doing this for the whole community. They benefit the whole community. We have a lot more outreach to adults beyond the school to our recreation facilities, whether it's pickleball or tennis courts or whatever else we provide for the community. So even though it's the school asking for these, I think we have to realize it's for the community, and I hope we get the support of the entire community, including township, city council, etc.
I'm sorry I brought it up, but it's worked out well this way, and quite honestly, the feeling, and I can't speak for this council, but the feeling in the past is that because we're such a large community that extends well beyond the limits of the city itself, to find a way to pay for or come close to paying for maybe, you know, some of those facilities and the use of it and, you know, the operation of that. So that's why, you know, I think the way it's been set up has been fine because it brings the township in, it brings the city in, and it provides some revenue to the school for that. Quite honestly, for, you know, an entity like the city, which is, I think we've probably got, well, we have the smallest tax base of all three entities that are here, whether or not, you know, of course, the school district quite larger, and the township with all that nice desirable property out in the, around the lake down there, you know, we have less ability to tax people than others do. So that's kind of the history as to where we're at now. But, you know, of course, you know, I'm always looking, you know, open to suggestions of other ways to, you know, to do things if they're not working well enough or you know, not working at all.
So I guess what I just want to get across is that we might be asking for buildings for school, but I want people to understand that what we're asking for isn't going to benefit just the schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
gonna
that,
benefit-
yeah,
and that's the CT as well, and as we hope to expand that for beyond the school in the future.
Yep.
So we need to get that message out there
Mm-hmm.
to go to the public.
Yep.
I guess this is kind of a difficult question, but do we foresee any merging of schools down the road that we do this expansion? Does it put us in a lot better shape for merging?
Well, and again, I can only sit here on April 16th, 2019 and look into a crystal ball. I don't see school districts necessarily going through a consolidation process again. The last one that happened was very much state incentivized in order to get it to happen. I think the state has learned a lot about what that incentive actually has done, and so I don't necessarily see that state reaction happening again. So realistically, to answer the question as far as from Paynesville's perspective, are we in a position where we would be exploring that? No, we're not. But it's interesting you bring up the idea of how do districts work cooperatively together, and I think that's really what the piece needs to
Well,
be.
I'm thinking on the industrial.
Yeah.
You know,
it's-
not every school is gonna do this, so
Right.
if we got neighbors that, and when they send students, we get some money.
Yep, and so it's interesting, right now Paynesville Schools is working with BBE and New London Spicer to actually do on a smaller scale what the Wright Technical Center is doing. So our high school students are actually gonna be able to go down to New London next year and potentially build a house on site at their high school. That's not a program that we per se are gonna be able to offer. Likewise, our doors for our automotive programming are going to be open to NLS and BBE students. That's not programming that either one of those two districts have. So collectively, the three districts are all looking at facility needs, but we're also all going into it is we can't be the masters of everything. And so how can collectively the three of us work together that, you know, maybe Paynesville will be home to 1, 2, or 3 outstanding CTE programs that could attract students here. Likewise, NLS may be home to 1, 2, or 3 that we may have sent some students there. And so it's more of a collaborative process than maybe
Makes
it
good
was.
sense.
Yeah.
I think the township and the city have had a really good relationship. We work on many fronts together. I mean, on the trail, with the hockey arena, with many other things that this year we're looking at having lifeguards again. You know, and these are all good things that are good for the community. One place that the school saves a lot of money is with the hockey arena. They don't have to have one, and they've never really helped us with the hockey association. And that's always been kind of a sore spot. New London Spicer has helped. Richmond helps. We had the hardest time at first getting the school even to publish when the games were. You know, and I think you guys got to step up. you know, when it comes to the hockey, because put a hockey arena on to this agenda for adding on to the school and stuff, and see once how much that would cost you yet. And this year we're putting a new roof on it. You know, we've just got a lot of expenses with it, but we feel that hockey is very important. We have so many kids coming to hockey now that both parking lots are filled almost every night in the winter. I mean, it's phenomenal. We have to turn kids away because we've got that many. There's one place I think that the school could help us, you know, and we certainly help the school in each and every way we can, you know, but I don't know. It's just my thoughts.
I'll put my 2 cents in it. Since I've been on that side, now I'm starting to learn the side of the township. And I'm also realizing with the school and the township, and I know that the city is in the same boat, is that we only can raise so many taxes for special interest things. Because we have, just like in the schools, those are defined monies for particular things. The township is the same way. We cannot just say we're gonna give some entity X amount of dollars out of our general fund to operate something or another. So we have to be very careful of that. So I think at the end of the day, what can we do as a group? And you know, it takes a village to raise these children. And I think each and every one of us brings a huge value to this community, because without one, we would not have the other. And so with us working together, I'm sure we have the hockey arena where we're using that as a lot of great things for the kids and stuff like that. I know that there was monies that was designated through different grants and stuff like that. And there's certain things at the school, like I said before, I know Butch, you were talking about how, you know, that they didn't do this or do that, but sometimes it's a little bit more complicated too than that. So at the end of the day, I think all we can do is recognize our differences and then try to pull together the resources that we can for the betterment of everybody. Because I'm a firm believer, if we don't start doing something with the school and make that attractive for young families to come into this community, we're not going to have that school. And now it's just a domino effect for everything else that comes with it. So I think, you know, that's a true thing. 94, I heard now they are pushing that up, so now they're going to try to connect Wilmer and St. Cloud within the next 3 years. Instead of a 4-year project, it's going to be a 3-year project starting in 2022. That is going to surely open up the doors, I think, for Paynesville. I could never see the potential of merging with any other school like what the superintendent had indicated, just because I think we're going to start seeing that growth. But we're going to have to be creative enough on that housing thing, whether it's part of the township with some sort of easements of some sort, or the city with some sort of taxation reductions in some of that areas. I don't know what you can do, but you know, there has to be some more creative thinking of what can we do to make those affordable housing for these individuals. I think we are all intelligent. I think we'll get there. I think we have come a long ways these last few years with the school on how they are working together with the industries in town, how they're working with the township and the cities and so on and so forth. So I think it's really great that we're getting together and talking about, okay, what is it that we really need for this community to thrive? Because we all want this community to thrive. So how do we get there? And I think we are all intelligent enough that we'll get there. It's just a matter of how many things that we are going to get tied down by legislation or rules and stuff like that. But I think there's enough wealth out in this community that can make it also happen too. So. And for the township, we went to a road inspection today. So that was good. We didn't have very many cracks in the roads. So, but we're going to be posting those things too as we move forward with those projects. with some overlays and stuff like that. And hopefully we'll keep our webpage up to where those things are happening and when they're happening, so the community members know when these are taking place. I think we can do a better job at that and keeping our web pages up and running and more current and stuff like that. So that's something I think that we, always need to be working on. I mean, we don't have a person like Renee that is doing this here. We kind of all pull together and try to make that all work. So bear with us as myself and Steve get acclimated to the township, because there's a lot of things that go on that, we're all new to it, but it's fun to see the growth and the commitment from the community and stuff like that. Just those endowments that we've been seeing these last couple of years, that there's people out there that are very excited about this community. So kudos to them, thankful for that we have those people in our community that are willing to do that. So.
What's the city got going on?
Oh, dear.
Nothing.
Spend it on.
We're
Meeting adjourned.
We just spent all our money on
Took 15 minutes.
2 projects, less than 15 minutes. We spent probably
$8 million.
How much more times our annual budget.
That's gonna be it for a little while.
Yeah. As you noted when you were here, we've got, a big project going with AMPI to help them, actually to help us as a city kind of put, in a little bit of an ease on our sewage treatment plant. AMPI is a very big contributor to what goes down there, and they can't expand unless they can get some relief or some expansion within our system there. So that's one of the reasons for us spending money there. We do have a street project coming up again now this summer, which will be some of the work happening out there at the school area there, that crazy intersection where you go in and out of Teals and where Shopko was there. That's just I've almost been hit a couple times, but especially in the winter when it's slippery with someone trying to slide down the hill with their brakes on and someone trying to go into the intersection. And some other areas throughout the city are housing. You brought that up. We've been talking about that, I don't know, for how many years? For almost forever. Our Economic Development Authority was concentrated on jobs in the manufacturing sector, and we lost a major entity out there, Stearns Manufacturing, which was kind of good news and bad news at the same time. But because we didn't have the workforce available for them to meet their commitments that they had been given because of state and other incentives. So even our Economic Development Authority has been looking more at housing and what can happen there. Quite honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our emphasis has been on like the senior housing and getting some transitional type stuff to get people out earlier of single family residential, working out with on the east end of town here with that development there. Renee mentioned some housing incentives there to open up housing, because it's a lot easier to deal with it bit by bit than, like she said, to get a major investor to come in. Anytime the government is involved in a program, especially with housing, the costs go up. So it's a whole lot easier I shouldn't say a whole lot easier, but it's more economical to try and find investors that can handle it themselves, but they are hard to come by. Industrial park, to go along with the manufacturing our industrial park, we need to find a place to expand that or to start a new one. There's always some rumblings out there, but until a lot of people like to keep things close to the vest until they either decide to do something or not do something. So Renee is the keeper of secrets there.
We have a downtown.
And yeah, I was getting to the downtown part here where, again, was brought up about, the nightlife or something, or, I mentioned, trails and parks and things like the amenities that, the younger people like, and older people too, but when you're looking for, teachers or whatever, they're typically the younger, starting families and that kind of thing, that they like the playgrounds, they like the trails, they like to go walking, biking, hiking, golfing, swimming, and that type of thing. So we're, with the housing thing, we're trying to, the downtown housing, trying to find out what's the best mix for downtown. Is it, senior housing, or is it more, mid-level market rate, kind of, transition, to come into town and rent someplace, or there's even people coming out of, the young ones coming out of college, they're used to dorm life. They're used to having somebody shovel their snow and mow their lawn and that type of thing, and don't want to live in a single family residence. So that's what we struggle with, trying to find what we can do best to meet the needs within the community. So it's tough, and we're open to ideas. We got a working session coming up at 6 o'clock. We'll be talking about some of these issues. Yeah, the downtown, it's kind of seems to be, downtown and housing are kind of like tied together, especially when you're talking here lately as to how to handle that, because it's not going to be retail. If it is, it's going to be very limited retail, because it just, with all the other stores that are closing, it's tough, and I don't know if we're being recorded or whatever, but people say, why can't you be like New London and have all these nice little shops? And I said, well, those nice little shops are fine, but how many people do they employ? How long are they open?
They come and go too, right?
They come and go too.
Turnover,
So
ownership.
we're trying to look at what we can best do with the downtown there. The nightlife thing is kind of what people are looking for. A lot of the downtowns are converting away from retail to more service and entertainment, that type of thing. But that's just my ramblings.
No, to add right now.
I
I don't.
You don't?
I do have one more comment or further. I drive school bus, so I'm glad we have a 5-day work week. But, and I hope we don't go away from that. But Monday I was at the truck stop, and there was a young school teacher that took the day off, and he was applying at Grove City because of the 4-day work week. And his comment was, I can make in 4 what I do in 5. Why would I want to go anyplace else? That's not an issue overall, is it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a loaded question.
That's kind of like.
Am I being interviewed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have firsthand experience with the 4-day school week.
Right.
There are a lot of values to a 4-day school week. There are a lot of considerations and things that people have to be okay with, that it's not for all communities. And so from what I can tell you, since I've gone through an interview process here, since I've arrived in July and been here since July, there has not been one single conversation about a 4-day school week. That is not something that's on my radar. That's not something that's on the board's radar.
But do you think young teachers prefer that, or not a big issue?
Well, I think it's a bigger can of worms. I mean, I think what you're looking at, and whether you want to get into the millennial conversation or the other generations that's coming up next, what people are looking for is autonomy. They want to do something they're passionate about, and they want to be able to be kind of turned loose on it. And so let's be honest, the school system in the state of Minnesota, it's not a friend of autonomy. It's a friend of how many regulations can we put on you, and then how many checks and balances can we go and see if you're doing the right thing, and then let's put your test scores in the newspaper and see who got the highest number.
which is completely pointless. But we've bought it. We're drinking the Kool-Aid. And that's the problem. So do I think that you need to have a 4-day work week in order to attract new people? No. But I think you need to have a school system that's about how do we tap into what people are passionate about. And if you get adults, educators in front of kids that are passionate, I think we're going to find out what our kids are passionate about. And if you have a school full of students that are there because they're passionate about something, that is something to come watch. Because that's a pretty cool place to be. And that's what I'm really hopeful that Paynesville Schools is about. Do we need a 4-day week to do that? Absolutely not. Do we have to be willing to have some honest conversations about why do we keep doing the things that we're doing? Yeah, we do. Do we have to be okay with maybe saying, you know what, State Department, I respectfully disagree, we're gonna try this? We do. And sometimes those things get you in hot water, and then we just plead for forgiveness.
Been there, done that.
Some of the other things, we'll go back to Paynesville now. Some of the other things we've been doing is I think we have $100,000 to put towards park equipment to some of our parks, to update our parks, and the Park and Street Committee's working on that one. The housing incentives, Renee can give you the exact amount of how many lots we sold since we started that housing incentive. 8 lots?
8 lots.
Which was really nice because again, that's not just for the city-owned lots, that's for any lot in Paynesville. And so when those houses move, then of course, that's what Jeff was talking about, we got open ones. So the housing incentive is probably one of the best things we've done so far because those lots didn't sell for, ever.
Oh, I got here in 2006 and that's when they were developed. So
Yeah.
there was one sold.
So we're gonna keep that program in there. I don't remember how many we put a number on it for one, but.
Yeah.
We can expect.
But we really don't care. If we can keep on selling the lots and keep on people building houses in town and open up their other houses. So that's what the city is doing. We're trying to work on our parks. We're trying to work on the housing as much as we can by offering the incentives. If you follow the EDAP, they help a lot of the business get started and some of the construction on the buildings and so forth, along with the grants and so forth. The great thing is that we're all here today. And if we can get a little bit of communication, kind of like the think tank we're involved in and all those other committees we get thrown in, and then you like the Highway 23 Coalition, I'm in that meeting too, that got bumped up. And that was a group of guys who happened to get the highway going through, and so that's all. Whenever you get a group of people together, you can make a lot of things happen. So we can keep the communication open.
I have a question about housing. I always have to see a map to see what the dimensions of the city are. How much room is, I see a lot of commercial space for sale with the opening of the bypass. I don't even know whether that's in the city or if that's out city, but
It's
how
inside.
much in-city space is there for housing left open? That's
For lots?
Yeah.
There's roughly in the Paynesville area, so that includes some in the township, 62 lots that are available.
But that includes the township.
Right now we have about 20, well, he's got, yeah, I forgot about Ampy, so that would be about 50 in the city limits. And that includes, like out in Willglow, that's sold, but they have 3 lots out there.
Right.
Mrs. Zimmerman has 1 lot, Peter Ampy's got 21 lots. And then there's a gentleman that has them out in Heatherwood that is from Royalton, and he has 3 lots out with where the city lots are. So, and then the city has all the lots out by McDonald's and the new airport and all of that that's in the city limits.
There is a lot of land that's not, platted or it's zoned or zoned agricultural, across the river out there, and then even out towards, North Towns. A lot of that, some of that's in the township too, but that's all, unplanned or whatever. That's, it's in our comprehensive plan to be, whether or not residential or commercial or whatever, but until the developer, the owner decides to do something, that all of a sudden that could open up another 100, residential lots if that's what the developer wanted, so.
Just curious what the potential is.
If you got some money laying around there
Is there
from your
potential?
your retirement and your past retirement.
I'm just curious if there's any talk about annexation then.
Yeah, we don't talk
You
annexation.
don't talk, okay, all right. that's fine.
Yeah. Well, no, since we do talk annexation, since you brought it up, and one of the things that is of concern is when you're looking at developers or whatever, a lot of the questions are, is there sewer and water available?
Right.
And those are some of the services that, unfortunately, the township can't provide. We do occasionally get, questions about that, and, if they're looking at certain parcels, we refer them to hopefully we refer them to the, township and, send them out there to answer the questions,
I'm just wondering if that makes it more appealing to people
It all depends on what you want. There are those that like the larger lots, and there are those that don't necessarily mind. They don't want to have to deal with wells and septics and that type of thing. So, the problem in long range planning is that if something happens to an aquifer or to wells or septics, and you have to annex, you've got bigger lots that all of a sudden become less desirable because of assessments when you're doing projects. So, and that's kind of one of the reasons that we really haven't talked about annexation a whole lot, because we kind of realized that the township is there to serve a certain segment, and we're here to serve a certain segment, and we deal with things when when the issue comes up. We do have a orderly annexation agreement with the township that protects some of their areas from being annexed by a land-hungry city, which we'd like to be, but we're not. But we do have a good working relationship with the township.
It's easier to work together,
Yep.
much easier.
It would make a huge difference if you could make investments like you do with solar energy and stuff, where they could get tax breaks. You would have more money than for building. But unfortunately, the state doesn't look at it that way, or the federal government. But if you did the same thing you had with wind energy and with solar energy especially, there'd be so much money out here.
Or some of those solar farms now, they got smart. They split their farms down based on output, because if they get over a certain size, they're taxed at a commercial rate rather than the agricultural rate. So, so the state knows how to get their money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I always, if someone in the township gets bucky, I always say that watch out, or we'll dissolve the city and turn the keys to the city all over the township. Let them deal with it.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts?
I hope we can, I do.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just- I hope-
sorry, I overlooked you. We've got a city administrator, or a city engineer down there that deals with all these, expansion and sewer and water type things, and public works director, and a police chief that's been, working with the school out there with, getting the liaison officer set up. I didn't mean to hog the whole.
Oh, I just hope that we can do this again 3-6 months, just so that we know, because we can help out. I know, Matt, we had talked about too that you guys were looking at ripping up that Janata Road. We're gonna be over there doing a street project. Can we help out and, share the guy that's there doing the work? Maybe we can get that all pulled out for you for a reasonable price. And those are the kind of things we can team up and work together on, and so I just, you guys all have new people on your boards, and I think it's good that we communicate well and keep meeting and finding out what we can do with each other.
I think it'd be interesting once we get the survey results back that, and have an opportunity to sit as a team and put that information together and start making a decision, to be able to have that meeting, even sooner than 6 months, 3 months, even some a little quicker, so we have our direction and can explore that with you as well. So
I think it's good for the community to see that we all support each other and in each other's projects, because it just looks awesome for our community. And I hear it all the time. I got Richmond and Cold Spring and Rockville that get together every month and have lunch and talk about what businesses they can bring in so they don't come to Paynesville. I get a kick out of that. I talked to them today and I said, "You guys are that afraid of you guys?" Like, well, you guys have a great network down there and it's just us. And I'm like, well, it takes all of us to work together to bring these businesses and people into our community to keep our community growing, so.
Did anybody, sorry to overlook the chief or public works director or city engineer, anything to add down there?
I don't think so.
You're just here for the work session.
I'm gonna mark that down. Paul had nothing to say.
He's probably listening to the radio.
It's on
and
tape.
music on his earbud there. Well, it is 6 o'clock and
Just one last word.
Yeah.
Please encourage everybody to fill out those surveys. We need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
Yeah.
of those filled out.
now we get one mailed to us, but a spouse can.
You can do them online.
Yeah, but so you can do it,
Oh, yeah.
individually do it online, because I know that my wife and I are gonna disagree on a couple things, so.
Well, good.
All
If we
all
do
they
it
have to do
online,
is,
it's gonna
there's
be
a phone
5
number
meetings.
that's on the survey, that if they just call that phone number, we'll get you another key code,
Oh, okay.
and you can fill out. So as many registered voters as are in the house, they can
Okay.
call the district office, Linda will get you more key codes, so that
Okay.
you can, all registered voters.
It's online too?
Yep.
I saw that, but I didn't, I just came today, I didn't really have time.
Oh, that's why I didn't see it. 'Cause I'm at home.
Thank you for your time. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Just for you? Yeah, just mine.
Just yours.
That's
And we'll
right.
take about a 2-minute break here and, into our